This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Fortunate tonight to have as our guest, folks, Rich Hobson, who is a candidate for the 2nd Congressional District of Alabama. Rich has been on the show before with Judge Roy Moore. He's a lifelong resident of the 2nd District and a clean-cut, handsome, young, articulate candidate for Congress. He's head of the court system in Alabama, and he's going to be a formal candidate for Congress in this June 5th primary. Rich, good to have you with us.
It was real good to be here, Steve. I appreciate that.
Rich and I were together last night in his home county of Coffee County. He was born and raised in Coffee County. I was glad to get a chance to meet his mama, and I'd met his wife before. And you've got loyal supporters in that district. I'm going to tell you, when we walked around the Enterprise Civic Center, everybody in there had Rich Hobson's shirt on there.
I tell you what, it was a great night, and I got to see a lot of old friends. And I had a lot of family there, so yes, sir, it was a real blessing.
Rich, you live in Montgomery now, don't you?
I do. I've been here about 25 years.
25 years?
Yes, sir.
How old are you now?
I am 56. I am every day of 56 years old.
That's not too old to be in Congress.
I don't think so. I think it's just the right age.
Yeah. Rich, you're the perfect candidate for it. You know, you've been running Judge Moore's campaigns for 20 years now. Or
yes,
thereabouts,
sir.
And ran the court system when he was Chief Justice.
I sure did.
People don't realize that the Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court also is in charge of the court system. So you being a close ally and knowing the court system like you do, you've run that court system for 20 years.
I have, Steve, and it was a great experience for me. Both times he was Chief Justice, he appointed me as the Administrative Director of Courts, and in doing that, I was able to work up a budget. I was able to get a budget from the legislature and then do the all-important live within the budget. And the budget was about $180 million. That covered 2,000 employees and 252 circuit and district judges and 68 circuit clerks. So it was a branch of government, and I did that twice, in the early 2000 and then most recently from 2013 to 2016.
Did you get to know a lot of the judges and clerks real well?
Oh my goodness, every single one of them. You know, I started out about 20 years ago with the Judicial College, Alabama Judicial College. I had been a court referral officer, but in the Judicial College, that's where I really got to know everybody, because you see everybody at all the trainings, and you get to help out with the trainings, and teaching judges and teaching employees about the court system. So that was a great way to get to know them. And by the time I was director of the court system, yes, sir, I knew them all.
Are a lot of the clerks and judges sort of being for you in this race? You find a lot of you know?
They are. One of my favorite things to do is to go to the courthouse in every one of those 15 great counties in the 2nd District. So yes, sir, I know them very, very well, and now I'm either the same age or I'm older than a lot of them. A long time ago I was always the youngest one around, but that's been pretty good too.
You're covering the entire district, aren't you?
I am. I sure am. And actually, so I'm from Enterprise, and my wife and I dated in the big city.
Enterprise
She's from Enterprise too. We met in the 9th grade at Dauphin Junior High, and we went to the Enterprise High School, and we always dated in Dothan because that was a big city. But after we were married, we ended up going to Andalusia, Alabama, for our first jobs, our first real jobs, and both of our kids were born in Andalusia. And along the way, we lived in Troy for a year, wonderful year in Troy, Alabama, and then we finally, I wanted to come to the capital city, so we came to Montgomery and been here about 25 years.
Well, you cut out for that 2nd District.
I believe so. I have either directly or indirectly worked in every county in the
Is that
2nd
right?
District. Yes, sir.
So you worked, what did you do in Andalusia?
I was a court referral officer, and I was actually, it had been a pilot program, and I was the 5th one in the state, and now there's, I think, 175 court referral officers. But I worked my way up the ladder and ended up being the state manager of the court referral officer program, and then I went to the Judicial College, and then just ended up having lots of different roles, and got to work under Frank Gregory and other directors of the court system, and then finally Judge Moore appointed me.
How did you and Judge Moore get to know each other real well?
That's a good question. I met him at new judge orientation in 1993. He was brand new circuit judge.
Circuit judge,
yes, sir, brand new.
In.
And I was one of the trainers in the Judicial College, and so I met him then, and then twice a year I would see him at, of all things, prayer breakfasts that we had at the judges' conferences. We have a summer meeting and a winter meeting. And I was kind of the resident Christian on staff, so they always got me to staff it. You know, Rich, you want to staff the prayer meeting? Sure. So I got to know him that way. And really, in the 90s, there weren't many judges who went to the prayer breakfast. So there were about 8. And Judge Moore always went. So I got to see him twice a year. And following that, when he was elected in 2000 as Chief Justice, I hadn't helped on his campaign. I was at the Administrative Office of Court, so we love everybody. We loved all the judges. And I got a call about a week after the election, and they asked me who I thought would get the big job, and the big job was the director of the court system, top of the pyramid. And I didn't know I wanted it to be somebody from the outside, but they said that Judge Moore wanted it to be me, that he wanted me to not tell anybody. I could go home and pray with my wife, but don't tell anybody, and to call him the next morning. So I did that, and he told me to keep on praying over the weekend and not tell anybody, and go see him and his wife on that following Monday night at a steakhouse. We did that, and I walked in, and he said, "This is not an interview. I want you to have this job. I need you to say yes." He said, "I have known since 1995 you were going to have this job. I didn't know I was going to be Chief Justice, but I knew that you would have it. I've watched you grow." So anyway, that's one of my favorite stories there, but he gave me a real good opportunity there, and I didn't waste it. And we led that branch of government for 3 great years, and at that time I thought it was going to be my career. And of course, Judge Moore was involved with the 10 Commandments, the acknowledgement of God. And I stood right alongside with him, Steve, and I knew you in those days.
Yeah.
And I was asked to bend, I was asked to fold, but I didn't. I stood along with him. He was removed. I was fired the next day. And just to go along with the story, after that, we both went to the Foundation for Moral Law, and I served as the executive director there. So for 10 years, or 9 years, I was at the foundation, and we worked on pro-life cases, on acknowledgement of God cases, prayer cases, Second Amendment cases, all those things that we hold near and dear, we got to work on. It was a real good experience. And after that, I remember at the end of 2011, Judge Moore came up to me and he said, "What do you think about going back?" And going back meant going back to the court system. And we had talked about it many times, and we never really wanted to at that time, but we prayed about it, and we had just such a great sense of peace that we journeyed out into that race with little money, but with a lot of will and a lot of hard work. And as you know, Judge Moore won without a runoff that year. And I remember we talked to you a whole lot during that year too. But that was amazing. We both went to our old jobs, and I was back as director of the court system. He was Chief Justice. And really, Steve, I thought that was going to be my career, the second time going in there. And, I was content to just continue doing that. I mean, that's a great, great job. I'm doing those budgets. I'm operating the court system. And lo and behold, another issue comes up. Also happens to be a real, real big, important issue. And that was traditional marriage between one man and one woman. And Judge Moore stood tall and didn't waver. And I was asked to bend. I was asked to fold again. And I didn't, because it was another great, big issue that I cared deeply about. So he was ultimately removed. I was fired the next day. But I tell you what, that may sound bad to your viewers that I was fired from a job a couple of times. I believe that it gives me the resolve and the capacity and the commitment to go to Washington, D.C. and not be changed by the Beltway and not have the Beltway fever. I have stood against the swamp here in Montgomery, Alabama, and I believe I can do the same thing in Washington, D.C.
Rich, what about, tell me about your children.
I've got 2 fantastic daughters. They're both married now, and I have 2 grandkids, a grandson and a granddaughter.
What's your wife's name?
Susie.
Susie, huh?
Susie, that's right.
And y'all grew up Enterprise together.
We sure did. We're sweethearts. We dated on and off all during those years.
Where are your daughters?
They are, I have one, my youngest daughter's in Chelsea, right outside of Birmingham, and then my oldest daughter just moved to Fort Wayne, Indiana, from South Bend, Indiana. And that means they're far away. And that's where my grandkids are in Indiana.
The second child,
yes, sir. It's a little difficult to get up there during the campaign, but yes, sir. We look forward to seeing them again.
Rich, do you find that there's much difference philosophically in any parts of the 2nd District? Like, was one more progressive, less conservative? That's a pretty conservative district.
It is a very conservative district, and in fact, if the U.S. Senate race that we just had, that I was Judge Moore's campaign manager, if it had been held in only the 2nd District, in those 15 counties there, he would be Senator Roy Moore right now.
He did beat Jones in those counties.
Yes, sir, he sure did. And let's see, in 9 of the 15 counties, it was over 60%. And in one of those counties, the great county of Geneva, Alabama, he was 80%.
Yeah.
So he was very, very strong there. And yes, sir, from Dothan, Andalusia, up to Montgomery, Elmore County, Autauga County, and all points in between, Yes, sir. It is a very, very conservative part of the state, and is a great part of the state. One of my favorite parts of the state.
Well, you probably have access to somewhat of an organization.
Yes, sir.
With more.
I would say all of my coordinators in the counties, which we just named yesterday, we did a press release on that, and they're generally from the Judge Roy Moore campaigns, not just the last one, but for all those years, because I've been his campaign manager several times.
You know, have you thought about, if you are elected to the 2nd District, what committees you would ask for?
Yes, sir. Definitely military, agriculture, and I mean that is the 2nd District.
It is.
Yes, sir.
It really is.
It is.
Probably more so than any other district in the state.
It is, and you know, I'm from Alabama. You know, I married over my head. I did all these things. I've got the background. I've got the education, but really, Steve, I'm running because I want to make sure that we preserve a safe, prosperous, and moral America for our children and our grandchildren. And the safe part of it, that has to do with the military. I served in the Air Force Reserves out at Maxwell. I was a fuel truck driver, backbone of the Air Force. Couldn't get off the ground without me. So I've got that background. I was also born into a military family. But I'm really interested in preserving our strong military. I understand the essence and the importance of having the best trained troops in the world and the best equipped troops in the world to have the strongest military in the world. So I'm very interested in doing that. I'm interested in securing our borders. I want to make sure that we secure them. I'm interested in building the wall. But before we can build the wall, because that certainly can't happen overnight, I'm interested in using our military to secure those borders. And so that's the safe part of it. The prosperous part of it, of course, I'm happy that we just got the tax cuts, but we need to reorient our way of thinking and remember that that's our money to begin with. We need further tax cuts. We're the greatest nation in the world. We need the lowest taxes in the world, and I'm interested in doing that. I'm interested in cutting the fat. Yes, I want to build up our military. Yes, I want to protect our farmers, but some of those agencies that are out there that are unconstitutional, Department of Education, that keeps on doing things like shoving Common Core down our throats, I'd like to do away with that. Department of Labor seems to be some redundancy with the states. So I'm interested in looking at that. And actually my experience in the court system, working on those budgets and having to cut corners to make sure that we could function, I believe will serve me well in Washington, D.C. And then finally, the last part of that, Steve, is the moral aspect. And it's true, for the past 2 decades, I did walk with Judge Moore in all those different battles, and I did pay the price for walking those. If asked to do it again, if given the chance, I would certainly do it again, because they were 2 of the most important things in the world, our Lord and, of course, biblical marriage.
Well, you know, going back to those committee assignments,
yes, sir.
If you took Maxwell, Gunter, and Rucker out of the 2nd District, it'd make a lot of difference.
Oh my goodness, we have to have those bases,
and
the importance that they have anyway. I mean, Fort Rucker, which I lived on from 4th grade to 6th grade, okay, before we officially moved to Enterprise, my goodness, aviation capital of the world. So, yes, sir. And it was also home of the Silver Eagles. I don't know if you knew that. It was the precision team of the helicopters for the Army. My dad was a charter member of that. So from 72 to 76, he was on the Silver Eagles.
With just 4 of them. I mean, like four branches. I mean, like when you get to Rucker,
yes, sir.
The how many people work at Rucker? Do you know no ballpark now?
Let's see, it's 25 to 30,000. It's
wow.
It's a great
Would
amount.
Be more than that at Maxwell Gunter?
Yes, sir.
Rich, you know one thing. I was sitting here with the current mayor of Montgomery several years ago now, 2 years ago. Mayor Strange was on the show, and I was asking him, I says, because there'd been a downturn with state employees, and I said to him, I says, Mayor, I guess it's affected your economy because of the number of state employees. You saw how it hurt the court system.
Sure.
How the
definitely.
cuts hurt the court system.
They're still hurting. Yes.
Oh yeah, and he said, well, yeah, but it's not devastating. I said, well, it's y'all's biggest employer. He said, no, it's not our biggest employer. I said, well, and I said, has Hyundai gotten that big? He says, no, Hyundai's not our biggest employer. Our biggest employer is Maxwell Gunter.
Maxwell Gunter. Wow. Well,
It's
good. We need to keep it that way.
It's bigger than state employees, state Alabama government, and Hyundai. Sure. And not only that, Rich, but you have a lot of, having grown up in the Wiregrass and around Rucker, there are a lot of retirees, military retirees,
yes,
in the river region.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's how we got there. I mean, my parents could have gone anywhere. They're from Mississippi, but we ended up,
well, you retired where you were.
Yes, sir.
Well, and if you think about it, I was talking to somebody in Dothan the other day about you know, we're all growing older, and this person's probably about 10 years older than me. And I said, you know, the good thing about living in Dothan is you can grow old in Dothan because of the medical care. See, the medical care in Dothan is second only maybe to Birmingham.
Flowers Hospital.
Exactly. In the
Your
state.
namesake.
In the state. I'm talking about that.
Sure.
They have the best doctors in Dothan. Plus, if you look at a map, if you say a snowbird was going to move to the panhandle of Florida, well, the climate's the same in Dothan, Alabama as it is in Panama City, Florida.
And just an hour and 15 minutes away.
And the property taxes, you know, are
a lot less.
Are a lot less. I mean, if I were a retiree, Dothan would be a great retirement community.
Yes, sir. But I tell you what, you mentioned something that kind of piques my interest about the medical care, and in Dothan it is fantastic, second to none. In many parts of the second district, though, we have rural health care, and it is a problem.
It is a problem.
And there are hospitals at Georgiana right now, Florala,
even Andalusia and
Troy.
Troy.
Definitely, and my kids were born in Andalusia. But right now they are facing some severe cuts, and I believe that there are some solutions that I'll be able to bring to the table when I get to
And you're
Washington,
aware
D.C.
of them.
I'm very, very aware of them. We also have a Veterans Administration problem with that health care, and I believe that bringing those two issues together that we'll be able to do something. For instance, there are literally, that we have veterans literally dying right now, waiting for bed space to get into a VA facility, okay, for long-term care. And right now in Florala, in McKenzie, in Wetumpka, at these different hospitals, there's bed space available that we could have veterans in there right now receiving quality care. So I'm very interested in looking at that.
You know, people not really think about this, but a congressman has more influence, especially in an area like military and defense. And we've been fortunate in the past. We've had congressmen who have realized the importance of Rucker and Maxwell and Gunner.
Definitely.
And I'm thinking particularly about Bill Dickinson.
Yes, sir.
You may be too young to remember Bill Dickinson, but I worked with him, and he was when I was a young man in both Washington and Montgomery here. And you know, Bill actually, there's a couple of military subsidiaries in my county of Pike that he literally got there.
Is that right?
There's a Lockheed Martin Marietta plant there that hires 200 or 300 people in rural Pike County. And also you have Sikorsky there. That's right. So those plants are pretty big parts of the, so you have peripheral things when you have a Fort Rucker.
Right.
And they have the largest helicopter pilot and a training area in the country. You have spin-off industries for those things.
Definitely, and the second district is full of them. Right now, because of the heart of the second district, you know, in Troy, Alabama, we got Kimber.
Yeah.
Arms going to build a big plant there later on this year, and that's pretty exciting. That'll be lots of jobs and a great handgun too.
Yes, right. Yeah. So you're familiar with Kimber?
Oh, yes, sir, definitely. Yeah,
so you're very strong on the national right to carry,
yeah,
Second Amendment.
Yes, I'm NRA member, Bama Carry member, and yes, sir, we have to protect those rights. And guns don't kill people. You know,
Is NRA going to endorse in this race? You think?
I believe that they will. They do. They do. I would imagine I'll get an A+ score, and but since I'm not the incumbent, probably won't get the endorsement. But yeah, definitely, I will fight to protect our rights there. You bet.
Well, tell me again another thing too. Are you doing a lot of work in Elmore and Autauga?
I am. I'm doing work in every one of the counties. So yes, sir, I'm going all over the place.
How do you see the problem of the federal deficit? How does this country grow out of that deficit problem?
There have to be tough decisions made by folks who have made decisions like that before. And as I said, my experience, my background in the court system, I mean, we had to live within our means. We had to cut programs here and programs there and make sure that we could keep the people there. And as you know, the court system in Alabama is down by several hundred people. But to do the same thing in the federal government by eliminating the waste and getting rid of programs that we do not need and agencies that we do not need. But for example, okay, you know, I mentioned reorienting our way of thinking, you know, with taxes, all right? Looking at something like the fair tax where you're taxed based on consumption. all right? If we did that, it would do away with the volumes and volumes and mounds of laws and tax codes that we have to go through with the Internal Revenue Service. We could do away with the IRS. That would save a whole lot of money, and our lives would be improved anyway, and probably our nation would have more to spend. So I'd be very interested in that. But also, I had mentioned border security before. You know, the cost of illegal aliens right now per year is $113 billion per year. Okay, that you and I have to pay for, and all of our friends and neighbors. Okay, to put that in perspective, the nation's budget is $4.1 trillion. The income that you and I pay in and everybody else is $3.65 trillion. That leaves a deficit of $480 billion. Okay, so $480 billion every year just going into that hole. That's why it's almost $21 trillion right now. But the cost of illegal aliens is $113 billion. That's a little over 20% of the deficit every year. So there are things that we could do there just by following the law, first of all, and then also securing our borders.
Are there that many illegal immigrants in Alabama, most of them in California? That's what
I think it's on border states. I don't think there's that many in Alabama.
Do you know, I guess you do know several members of Congress well already, Gary
Yes,
Palmer and...
Oh, I do, and just through the years just being around Montgomery and then serving with Judge Moore through different campaigns, we've met a whole lot of people. And not just here in Alabama, but across the nation as well.
Yeah. Your children, where did they go? Did they grow up in Montgomery?
Yes, sir. Sure did. They went to Emerald Mountain Christian School. I don't know if you know Bobby Ames.
Up in Elmore County?
Yes, sir. And they, I tell you what, that school, Miss Bobby, my wife, and the Lord made me look like a real good dad because those kids turned out great. They are fantastic.
Now, how old are they again now?
They are 29 and 26.
And they're both, the ones in... Is Indiana?
Indiana, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Her husband works for the railroad, and we are praying that after he pays his dues up north, he'll be able to come down south and bring my daughter and my grandkids back home.
Good.
Yes, sir.
Rich, you know, a lot of folks that have really looked at the lifestyle of a congressman. A lot of people are reluctant to do it because you really are on a plane to Washington every week, and it's always raising a lot of money too.
That's
you
true.
always have to ask for money to get run for re-election, and you're on the plane every week. I guess it's a direct flight from Montgomery to Washington.
Yes,
now.
There sure is. And, you know, I like seeing the people. I like hearing what concerns are and listening to what the concerns are and then trying to do something about it. You know, in my role, again, in the court system, I was a problem solver. And I believe that will serve me well in Washington. But, yes, sir, I look forward to that. And I still plan on teaching Sunday school at Lakeview Baptist Church and singing in the choir and leading the praise band. So, yes, sir.
Good. Tell me another thing that you would like to see done your first term in Congress as a freshman congressman. If we sat here 2 years from now, if you went there too and came back on this show 2 years from now, what would be one thing you'd like to say? Well, Steve, this is what I really wanted to do. Get on a certain committee or make a point or become the single person for a certain issue or...
Sure. Well, I got a couple of things here. First of all, I've wanted this legislation for a long time, and I think it was introduced in 2003 and then 2004, and then it's been hard in Congress. And it had to do with the court system. It had to do with an intercept of the federal income tax. Now, because of our efforts under Chief Justice Roy Moore and myself, our leadership, we have the state intercept program, and it helps out the court system every year here in the state. But if we could intercept the federal tax returns of folks who owe money to the court system, it would be a good thing for the Alabama court system. And I know I'm not there anymore, but I still care about the judicial branch of government because it's a great branch of government here in the state, and we have good people over there. But that's one of the things I'm interested in. But another is prioritizing our decision making. And as an example of that, I mentioned that I was fired a couple times for standing up for principles, standing with Judge Moore, okay? Well, there are certain things that I will not ever bend on. And case in point would be, just recently, on February the 9th, the Band-Aid budget that was just passed by Congress, okay? Our current congressman just voted for that, all right? That budget, that Band-Aid budget that was voted on in the wee hours of February the 9th, it included $500 million for Planned Parenthood. I will never.
It did have Planned Parenthood.
Yes, sir. It sure did. $500 million for Planned Parenthood.
She voted for it.
She did, and that is something that I will never vote for. I realize that we've all got to work together. We all have to work with each other, and we have to compromise and do that to make sure that our government continues. But on that issue, that is a deal breaker for me.
Well, did the other congressional members vote for it all? They voted?
No, Mo Brooks voted no.
I thought Mo had.
He sure did. So, yes, sir.
But
But that kind of decision-making and that kind of, I believe, fortitude, I plan on bringing that to Washington, D.C. to represent the interests of the 2nd District, because we are definitely a pro-life district and a pro-traditional marriage district and a pro-military district and pro-gun district, so you bet.
Do you find that the Wiregrass is more conservative than, say, Autauga and Elmore? About the same?
You know,
socially, maybe?
I can't say that because I'm a member of Bama Cary in Autauga County, and I tell you what, those are real good folks up there. So yes, sir. You know, Montgomery, of course, it's capital city. It may be a little bit different, but Autauga, Elmore, they fit just perfect into the 2nd District.
Becky Garrison was on the show when she ran for Congress 2 years ago. She is endorsing you, isn't she?
She sure is. I'm proud to say Becky's with me. She introduced me at my announcement.
I noticed that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so
she's a great lady.
The folks who are kind of known as Tea Party members in the district probably pretty much in Rich Hobson's corner.
I believe they are. Yes, sir.
Well, you have a good reputation, Rich, as a leader of the court system and as a family man, as a Christian man, and we need people like that in Congress, and I appreciate you taking time to run for Congress.
I thank you very much. I appreciate being on the show and just getting out there, you know, like seeing you last night. That was a real good time, and you're real good to go to lots of events anyway.
Well, so I enjoyed meeting your mom, and I enjoyed seeing all your friends. Like I said, everybody had a Rich Hobson t-shirt on. So you could tell you're from that area.
Yes, sir. Yeah, my mom was excited to meet you. She listens to you on your radio show, and she had specifically bought your book for me and got you to sign it for me.
I remember that.
That was a good Christmas present a couple of years ago.
Well, Rich, you're a good guy, and you're a good candidate for Congress, and we appreciate you taking time to be on our show. Folks, again, our guest tonight has been Rich Hobson, a longtime advocate and religious person here in the district of 2nd District, and head of the court system for quite a few years, decades. And he is a candidate for the 2nd Congressional District race, which is June 5th, which is not far away. Again, Rich Hobson has been our guest, and we thank you viewers for watching. Hope you tune again next week for Alabama Politics. Thanks for watching.